Hello and welcome to December's Mixed Media Menagerie. This month we are playing with carving a stamp in honor of Carve December, and then a colored ink pad, and including a tip in our journal spread. Our guest artist this month is Char de Rune. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'll have all of her information in the description. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is carving a stamp. And the way I like to do that, at least for what I'm doing here, is drawing onto the stamp, and then I'm going to carve around it. So I'm doing this cotton stem. I'm not going to draw all of it. I'm just drawing enough to fit on this block. This is like a stamp carving block. You could use, if you didn't have something like this, you could use like an eraser. I have a bunch of stamps that I carved out of an eraser. And then this is just like a simple set of, this is like a carving tool. The set comes with a bunch of different carving nibs, I think, for more detail versus like the wider areas, like the empty areas. So I'm just carving around my sketch so that what is left is the design. So I'm just carving all the negative space. I'm also going to carve out some little details from the little cotton buds and the leaves and stuff. But you can see, like, for the stems, I'm leaving enough. You don't have to leave like a whole lot, but I'm leaving enough to where you can tell that there is a stem there. And now I'm kind of, to make it easier on myself, I am cutting out some of those larger negative areas. You could also carve small stamps onto those negative areas that you cut out. I usually do that. This time I did not. And then I am going in and doing some of the details. So, like, you have to remember that everything you carve out is going to be empty, which is sometimes hard for me to remember, but I wanted there to be some little details in there of like the different parts of the flower. So now I'm gonna stamp and see what it looks like. So I'm using Archival ink, and I'm just stamping really hard because I want to make sure that I'm getting it all as much as I can. And then you can see how there's like the little extra black bits along the side. Most of the time I like those and I leave most of them, but sometimes it's nice to go in and kind of clean some of those out that don't really need to be there. But if you're more of a detail oriented person, maybe you don't want any of those little black bits. Personally, I like some, but not a whole lot, so I'm just getting rid of some of the ones that irritate me. And then I'm going to stamp it again, make sure that I like it, and then go on from there. So the whole point with the carving the stamp, I don't know if you know about this, something called Carve December. It's where I don't know who started. I think Julie Faye Fan Balzer might have started it. But so it's basically like carving a stamp every day in the month of December. So that's why we decided to use carving a stamp this month. And so the idea was, well, if we're going to carve a stamp, we should use some type of ink. So we decided to go with a colored ink pad, because I don't know about you, but like I used to have all of these colored ink pads. Well, I still have them, but I used to buy them because I was like, oh, they're such pretty colors, and then I never use them. Like, the only color that I use is black. I rarely get out my distress inks anymore for whatever reason. It's just not part of my normal like repertoire. So that was the point of carving the stamp and using the colored ink pad. But I've been super obsessed with gel printing recently. I did a video that I haven't even like put on my YouTube channel yet of just like making papers with colors and the jelly plate, like not even stencils or anything, just like colors, color blocking and stuff. And I've been really loving the way that this raw sienna and the sage, Dina Wakley Media Sage color works together, and then with the turquoise, and just been super obsessed with these colors. So I decided to go ahead and do some jelly printing with the stamp and just play with it that way and see what happens. And I really love the prints that I got with the stamp, and then also like these side papers where I did like rubbing off the paint from the brayer and then stamping the paint onto that paper. It just looks so cool. Like I didn't want to go over it with any more paint because it looks so cool. So I'm playing with color and playing with the stamp and making a bunch of papers that I will use as the base layer for my journal spread. So here's just flipping through all of the different papers that I made that I'm going to use as the base of my journal spread. I'm not going to obviously use all of them, but I'll use some of them. And here is my journal. And you can see I have some Distress Oxide ink pads pulled out of colors that I felt like would go with what I already had going on with the jelly printing. So here is the peeled paint, and then I think I had pulled out like a fossilized amber and some other color. But I'm gonna go ahead and start gluing everything down. I'm using a combination of heavy matte medium and fluid matte medium.
So now I'm going in with my Distress Oxide ink pads. This is Antique Linen. This was the other one that I couldn't remember. And I'm kind of just going around the edges and around wherever I feel like it, and adding some of the ink. And then I'm taking one of my new stencils and I'm using the peeled paint to add some of these viney doodles. I thought the peeled paint was going to be a little darker, so like you activate the Distress ink oxides with water, and on some of them it turned out cool, like a deeper kind of like sagey kind of color, and then other ones like the green just was, whoa, crazy green, which isn't what I wanted. I didn't really want like a yellow color. I wanted like a deeper kind of color, like the sage from the Dina Wakley acrylic paint. So as you can see, it's getting real bright, and so I'm taking my paper towel and I kind of smudge some of it off, but like in that bottom right corner you can see like some of the vines look a little darker and more sagey, so I think that's part of the oxide happening. So now I'm taking walnut stain, and oh no, is that walnut stain? No, it's frayed burlap. Taking frayed burlap and doing it through my stencils in those same areas, because it seems like it's a little more of the color that I was kind of wanting. And then I do also use walnut stain around the edges, the same way I kind of did with the antique linen, to make it a little more distressed, kind of like using it like I would coffee grounds or something like that, to make it look a little darker. But you can see some of these vine areas, are definitely a lot darker, not nearly as green, but then you can also see some of like more sagey kind of tones down at the bottom. It's such a mystery how these things happen in some places and not others. But anyway, so now I'm just taking the water and kind of moving everything around, and then I decided for a tip-in, which I think we can all by now appreciate that I'm not very good at. I decided to take some of the clear transparency. I'm pretty sure this is the Dina Wakley clear transparency, and stamp my stamp on it. Probably should have done it the other way around, but I kind of like that it's not perfect.
and I'm going to trim it up and I'm going to turn that into a tip-in. So one of the things about tip-ins, I think that irritates me a little, is I have a hard time making them blend in to the background. Maybe that's because you're supposed to do them before you do your background. Like maybe are you supposed to tip in before doing like this whole elaborate thing, but I mean I thought you weren't from all the videos I watched. But anyway, it irks me when it doesn't like match, I guess, in a way that I feel like it should. And it's probably just like my own kind of insecurity about a page, or like about how I think things are supposed to look, and it really doesn't matter. But regardless, I have decided to try to make this tip-in blend into my background. So instead of just going with the sticky canvasy tape stuff, the Tim Holtz stuff, I decided to cover that with some vintage paper in matte medium, and then I took a stencil because I felt like the background still needed some more. I took a stencil and some spray paint and added some words to the background. And so because of the way the oxides work, it's going to kind of soak some of that color into the spray paint and everything, which I think is pretty cool. So then for the tip-in, I decided I wanted that to be my sentiment. Another thing with tip-ins is that it's hard for me to decide what should go on each side of the tip-in, because I want that to be my focal point, and I feel like if you put something on the side, well then that takes away from the focal point. I guess maybe only because I used a clear one. But anyway, so now I'm distressing the paper that I added to the tip-in, so that way it blends more into the background. So I'm doing some of the same things that I did on the rest of the background to that. And then I'm going to add my sentiment. So I took the 2 chip sentiments and made them so they were about the same size, and I cut one down to make it exactly the same size, and I'm putting one on one side and one on the other side, so that way they cover each other, and then it's in the same place for both sides of the page. So now I'm taking my favorite Lindy's Stamp Gang spray. Pretty sure it's called Golden Wheat. I think it's called Golden Doubloons. But it makes like this cool, deep sparkle color whenever it dries. So like the outer edge is darker, and then the inner edge is like a little more bright. But it's my favorite thing to splatter with. And this is my spread. I hope that you have enjoyed the spread, enjoyed the process, enjoyed carving a stamp, and my thoughts about tip-ins, and I hope that you'll create with us this month. And I think next month what we're going to do is a flip through of all of this whole year. And so if you have joined us this year, you feel free to post a flip through of your own. And I can't wait to see what you create this month. And I hope you had a wonderful holiday.